Today on Endures, I am going to be talking about a really crucial part of how we navigate towards our biggest goals and dreams, whether in work or whether in life, which is around habit stacking. So we all habit stack, but sometimes we stack bad habits. Sometimes we can stack good habits. And today I'm just going to give you 3 ways in which I habit stack good habits. So number 1 is what I'm doing right now. So it's thinking about how can I fit in either work or networking or social catch-ups into some movement. Now, this is not always appropriate, but today for the podcast, I've recorded a podcast from here before. If you can see the video, you will see that I am on a trail. I'm actually on the Pyramid, which is about 40 minutes south of Cairns. It is a almost 900-meter climb. It takes around 3 hours if you're just hiking to go up and down. Because I'm not a fantastic downhill technical trail runner, it probably takes me almost 3 hours even if I try to run parts of it. But today I'm just hiking, and if you were listening, that's why I'm a little bit out of breath. But I do encourage you, it's really beautiful here, to have a look on my Substack or my YouTube and you will see some of the views. But you know, I could think more about this podcast. I could go home and sit and film it with my DJI and my little, lapel mic, and it would sound better. But I have other things I need to do with my day. And this for me is really about progress over perfection. It's also very on brand for me, since my whole thing is endurance leadership and, bringing the science and strategy of endurance sports, business and leadership to people so they can thrive. So yeah, you're getting today's podcast episode from the Pyramid. Now, this is actually the second podcast episode I filmed today. So this morning at 6:30 a.m. our time, I was on the Tiberius show. That episode will not drop for about another 2 months, I reckon. But because I had to drive to the Pyramid, which is 40 odd minutes from my house, and we live in Cairns, so even though it's winter, it is still quite warm during the day, and I have other things I want to do today. I wanted to be up and gone. So I took myself, much to their amusement, but Joe Boy did make it work with the sound, maybe not so much with the sun rising behind me. I set myself up in a car park just south of here so that the trail was quite accessible for me after the podcast. Now, we can also incorporate this into, say, networking meetings where we can try and do a walk and a coffee, or if we're having a virtual networking, if it's appropriate, I sometimes take my dog for a walk and I, do the networking meeting. We can obviously incorporate in walking meetings into work. Now, I don't do this all the time. So when I have meetings with my team in the clinics, I generally need to be on a computer. I generally need to take notes. I generally, there needs to be actionable steps, right? So the walking meeting is useful if it is a thinking meeting rather than, and a brainstorming meeting, rather than something that you need to note take on. You can get some software programs though, like the Plod, for example, which you can wear around your neck that you can then record. But something for you to consider, how you can bring a bit more of that incidental movement into your workplace. Now, the second way in which I habit stack is my rehab. All of us need to incorporate more movement into our days because the sedentary lifestyle is going to be our number 1 killer. But for me, as a ultra trail runner, I always have these niggly little things that can become a bigger problem if I let them. So after I ran from Sydney to Newcastle this year, I was convinced I had a stress fracture. I took myself for an MRI. I luckily did not have a stress fracture in my foot, but I've quite a few other little tendon issues in my foot. And trail running, just like life, right? It's the 1%ers and the process that get us places. So there's a really famous story of the British cycling team who embraced this idea of going 1% better in so many ways. And so they would trial better nutrition, they would trial different bike setups, and all those little 1%ers do add up. So some of the little things that I need to do right now are some little balance and foot exercises and little rehab things. But for you, even if you're not injured, again, it's about how do you habit stack getting more water in, for example, or how do you habit stack doing those little 1%er things. And something that I've done is visibility. So I have kept, on a really slippy bit of trail here, I have kept my little rehab things that I need to use very visible in my office. So I stand up my stand-up desk. I set up my stand-up desk so that I'm ready to go. So I spend my first block of time maybe working on it. I plan my day around when I can stand up, because again, I don't stand up for every meeting or every activity. Often I need to sit down, but I will plan what I can stand up for. And during that time, I will do my rehab. And the third way that I habit stack is through sleep. So on the Tiberius show, just before, Tiberius asked me about my number one health tip for teenagers, and I shared, or for anyone, and I shared that it's consistent sleep. Now, a lot of us don't like that because we think we're superhuman, or we just follow these sleep bros who tell us about how sleep is for the weak, or, you know, they get 4 hours sleep a night or whatever. You know what? Good luck with your heart attack, because sleep is the bedrock of high performance, and sleep starts with the habits that we have first thing in the morning. So I never have my phone in the bedroom. I set my alarm on my watch. I do not bookend my day with things like my emails, because then my day gets derailed by somebody else, unless for some reason I have to get up and check my emails. This morning I did for a podcast link. I don't bookend my day with social media. I basically don't bookend it with other people's priorities. And so I then have a calmer start to the day. Now, there's other things I do, like I get movement, I get morning sunlight. Those are all really important. I try to eat, and this is a female thing, I will try to eat breakfast reasonably soon-ish for cortisol management, knowing that women's hormone management is totally different to men's. So if you're of the intermittent fasting brigade, yes, that can work really, really well for a lot of people, but does not work for me and my training background. So definitely doing what works for you and paying attention to your body is really, really important. And then when it comes to how I plan my time throughout the day to set myself up for good sleep, the micro breaks are super important. So the little 10-minute breaks, again, I am not perfect, but this is something I speak about in my keynotes, my coaching. You know, I talk about recovery menus. I'm going to put this in my journal that I'm going to design. So it's all about going, how do we embrace the power of these little micro breaks so that we're not constantly, you know, pushing through. You may remember on a podcast episode I did a while ago, I spoke about a recent study which has come out, which has said that the difference between a really high performing day and a kind of a meh day is in the realm of about 90 minutes. So on a high performing day, we can probably get about 90 minutes worth of focused, productive, purposeful work done, more than on a less productive day. But the key is that we can have those really highly productive days all the time. And so if we endlessly push through, then we're going to have less of those highly productive days. And then, of course, when it gets to evening time for sleep, I try to have a pretty consistent bedtime, but I will already be planning, if I'm going out to an event or something, I'll already be planning around how I can minimize that sleep disruption. So how I can start to wind down on the drive home. If I am at home as normal. I know that if I'm reading a good book, then I'm going to go to bed and I'm going to want to read and I'm going to want to stay up later. So really it's just a matter of getting into bed that little bit earlier and doing that, you know, being a little bit disciplined around that sleep time and those early morning habits and habits throughout the day. And this is something I'm actually running a workshop on this for a local group soon, because that self-leadership is such an important part of leadership. So I invite you to take those 3 tips around habit stacking and see how you can maybe integrate those into your own way, and maybe have a think about the little habits that you're unconsciously stacking that aren't great. So I'll tell you one of mine. We have a little ice cream after dinner habit that, you know, kind of comes to that time to sit down and watch a show together, and if we have ice cream, we'll get the ice cream. Now the key to that is obviously when that gets a bit much, we just don't buy the ice cream, right? But life is about moderation, but becoming, you know, conscious of where you're already stacking habits and what the type of habits you might like to stack a little bit more of are. Thanks for joining me. I'll see you tomorrow for more from Endures.